Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. Monday Night Raw tonight was from the Amway Center in Orlando. And Monday Night Raw tonight, what do you expect every single week from this show? This show was absolutely terrible tonight. This show was god-awful. This show sucks. This show continues to get progressively worse and worse and worse every single week. It's like WWE each week is like, oh, how can we top ourselves at being bad for Monday Night Raw this week? Oh, well, let's give them another terrible show. Let's make it even worse than last week. Monday Night Raw is god-awful every single fucking week. I mean, what did we get on the show tonight? We had Jeff Hardy return. Jeff Hardy returned after him being out with COVID, and he ended up taking on Karrion Kross. So we got a rematch from the first week when Karrion Kross ended up debuting on Monday Night Raw, where he ended up facing Jeff Hardy, and Jeff Hardy ended up winning the match. We had Alexa Bliss versus Doudrop. Boy, that sounds interesting. That sounds like an interesting match. We had Sheamus versus Ricochet. Damian Priest versus John Morrison. We had Nikki, A.S.H versus Rhea Ripley. And the main event, Randy Orton ended up facing AJ Styles, one half of the Raw Tag Team Champions. There you go. That was your Monday Night Raw tonight. Sounds like an interesting show, eh? No. Raw was absolutely fucking terrible. So anyways, let's get on with the review. So Monday Night Raw opened up tonight with Randy Orton. Randy Orton ended up making his way out. He ended up making his return tonight to Monday Night Raw after he has been out since June. So he made his way out, got a pop from the Orlando crowd. And Randy Orton ended up getting on the mic. Randy Orton was sporting a mustache. So Orton ended up saying, this is where he's supposed to welcome us, to Monday Night Raw. So then Matt Riddle ended up coming out. So Matt Riddle came out. Matt Riddle got on the mic. He ended up saying that he missed Orton. He ended up saying now that Orton is back, they can team together again and be rated RK Bro. So Orton ended up asking, what in the hell makes Matt Riddle think he'd want to team with him again? Orton ended up saying that they had some matches and sold some t-shirts and got buzz on social media. And that was it. Orton ended up saying that he works better by himself, and he's been watching from home, and that he saw Riddle has done just fine without him, and that Matt Riddle doesn't need Orton's help. Randy Orton ended up saying that they were a team, and then they got interrupted by the Raw Tag Team Champions, AJ Styles, and Omos. So Styles was on the mic. He ended up saying that this is so embarrassing, so much that he can almost taste it, and that it's just too sweet. So of course we had a little too sweet chant from the Orlando crowd. Styles and Omos then entered the ring. Styles ended up asking Matt Riddle about why Orton would team with him or be his friend. Styles started poking fun at Riddle for having a broken heart. Orton then ended up telling Styles to shut his mouth. He said that he has been watching from home while Styles ended up walking around the locker room like he's the man. So Orton ended up saying that the only thing bigger than Styles' ego is Omos, that jackass right there. So Styles then ended up saying that this is cap. So Styles then ends up explaining cap means it's a lie. He went on to say that since Orton is solo and that he has no tag team partner, what about they have a match later on in the night to see who runs the show? So Orton immediately accepts the match with Styles. He ends up saying that he's going to beat Styles with the 3 most dangerous letters in WWE. And that is the RKO. So Styles end up blocking the RKO because Randy Orton was going for the RKO, and Styles end up retreating out of the ring. Orton then end up stalking Omos, and Omos was yelling at Orton. Omos then turned around, and Matt Riddle was going to deliver the RKO to Omos, but Omos then ended up driving Matt Riddle into the mat, and he ended up standing tall over Matt Riddle. Riddle then rolled out to the floor, and Orton was looking down at Matt Riddle, shaking his head. Orton ended up saying that wasn't a smart move. So Orton ended up walking off, and that was how the segment ended. But overall, this segment was okay, in my opinion. Wasn't bad. There you go. So then we saw Baron Corbin. What the fuck was Baron Corbin doing on Monday Night Raw tonight? Don't we get enough of seeing him on SmackDown? Well, no, he had to appear on Monday Night Raw tonight because looks like WWE is bringing back the brand-to-brand invitational where a certain superstar can appear on either show, whether a SmackDown superstar could appear on Monday Night Raw or a Monday Night Raw superstar could appear on SmackDown. So we're going back to this shit again? Unbelievable. So Kevin Patrick was backstage with Corbin. Kevin Patrick was asking him why he came to Monday Night Raw. So Corbin ended up talking about how bad his life has been as of late. Said his wife left him, took his kid, and now he's homeless. He ended up telling Kevin Patrick that he was sleeping in a production truck this weekend, and that Jinder Mahal ended up calling him and offered a chance to turn his life around. Corbin ended up saying that it's risk versus reward, and that he's running out of options. He ended up saying if beating McIntyre will get him out of these financial troubles, so be it. Sword or not. So that was what Corbin had to say, but this whole storyline with Corbin, it's fucking terrible. It is so god-awful. It's one of the worst storylines on SmackDown. And they're trying to make us cheer for Corbin and, like Corbin as a babyface. It's not working. It's not working. Nobody wants to see Corbin on TV. Corbin has go-away heat. And they're trying to make us all get behind and feel bad for Baron Corbin. It's not happening. So then Corbin then made his way out to the ring, and we heard his old theme music play for a little bit, but then they end up shutting it off. So Corbin ended up walking out with no music, and we just heard boos from the crowd. So they botched on that. Somebody in the production truck botched in playing Corbin's old theme. So Monday Night Raw then went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back, we had Kevin Patrick. He was interviewing Drew McIntyre backstage. McIntyre ended up talking with Kevin Patrick about Jinder, Veer, and Shanky being scared of him. McIntyre then told Kevin Patrick that Corbin is a terrible person. Then he went on about his late mother, Angela, and why he named the sword after her. McIntyre ended up warning that karma is a bitch, and that he has no sympathy for Baron Corbin. So then McIntyre made his way out to the ring, of course had Angela the sword in hand, and we had the match Baron Corbin versus Drew McIntyre, which the match was boring. So the match ended up starting with Corbin. He was pleading with McIntyre. Corbin ended up swinging at McIntyre and missed. McIntyre then ended up unloading on Corbin in the corner. McIntyre delivered a chop to Corbin's chest, and McIntyre kept control of the match. Jinder Mahal, Rhea, and Shanky were watching from backstage. McIntyre ended up slamming Corbin with a suplex. Went for the cover, which Corbin ended up kicking out too. McIntyre then ended up knocking Corbin out to the floor. And McIntyre delivered another chop to Corbin while he was on the announce table. He was sitting on the announce table. So Corbin then ended up shoving McIntyre into the edge of the ring apron. And Corbin rolled McIntyre back into the ring. Ended up delivering a knee to McIntyre's gut. Corbin then ended up tossing McIntyre back over the top rope out to the floor. Corbin charged, but McIntyre ended up catching him, and McIntyre ended up launching Corbin into the barricade. So Corbin ended up landing a superplex, but McIntyre ended up kicking out at 2. Corbin then ended up running out and right back into the ring, and McIntyre ended up coming back and delivered the Glasgow Kiss headbutt to Corbin, which both Corbin and McIntyre end up going down. McIntyre then ended up beating Corbin down in the corner. He was mounting some offense. McIntyre was ready to deliver the Claymore as Corbin ended up getting back up to recover. And Corbin ended up sitting up on his knees. He was begging Drew McIntyre. And Drew McIntyre then took the mic. And he ended up saying that Corbin is absolutely pathetic. So Corbin ended up agreeing. He was like, I am. So Corbin ended up admitting right there that he is absolutely pathetic. So McIntyre ended up saying that he's starting to feel bad for Baron Corbin. He ended up saying, so if things are that bad, how much money do you need to get by for a few days? To, have a bed, or to have some food, or even take a shower. So Corbin ended up saying to McIntyre, oh, I need $100,000. So McIntyre was laughing at Corbin. You're saying $100,000? That seems reasonable. How about $200,000? Or $300,000? So then McIntyre starts doing the 3, 2, 1. And then he ended up leveling Corbin with the Claymore. So McIntyre went for the cover. And there you go. Drew McIntyre ended up winning the match. Post-match, Jinder Mahal, Veer, and Shanky end up walking down the ramp. McIntyre then grabbed Angela, the sword, and he raised it in the air. McIntyre was begging Jinder, Veer, and Shanky to come into the ring. Jinder ended up holding Veer and Shanky back. And pretty much that was that. But overall, McIntyre versus Corbin, boring match. When Corbin is in the ring, it's going to be a boring match because Corbin is absolutely terrible in the ring. So then we saw Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle ended up stopping Randy Orton backstage. Matt Riddle ended up asking if they can still be friends, even though Orton doesn't want to team up. Matt Riddle then ended up mentioning to Randy Orton the t-shirts that he had made, and says that he has a scooter for Randy Orton that's coming in the mail. Matt Riddle ended up saying that he wants to be in Orton's corner tonight. So Randy Orton was just staring ahead. He wasn't even looking at Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle ended up saying that Orton can't be serious. So Orton then turned to Matt Riddle. He ended up telling Matt Riddle that he is serious. And don't call me bro. So Randy Orton ended up walking off. So that was that. And then we had Karrion Kross versus Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy returned to Raw tonight after being out for 2 weeks because Jeff Hardy ended up having COVID. So he ended up returning tonight. And we saw how Jeff Hardy ended up defeating Karrion Kross a few weeks back. Karrion Kross's Monday Night Raw debut, which Jeff Hardy ended up defeating him. So we had a pre-recorded video of Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross was holding an hourglass. And Kross was talking about how Jeff Hardy ended up ruining his Raw debut. But now, Jeff Hardy will fall and pray. So that was what Karrion Kross had to say. But this was the same match that we saw, when Karrion Kross made his debut, a few weeks back. Same shit. Match started. Kross ended up leveling Jeff Hardy. Kross ended up using his strength to keep control of the match. He ended up launching Jeff Hardy across the ring. Jeff Hardy then fought back. The fans were behind Jeff Hardy here. Karrion Kross ended up tossing Jeff Hardy out to the floor. Karrion Kross ended up manhandling Jeff Hardy, but Jeff Hardy ended up countering, and he ended up whipping Karrion Kross into the ring steps. Jeff Hardy then did a running charge. He ended up leaping off the ring steps, and he ended up smashing Karrion Kross into the barricade. Jeff Hardy then ended up bringing Kross back into the ring, nailed a side Russian leg sweep. Jeff Hardy then went to the top. Kross ended up jumping up. He ended up knocking Jeff Hardy down to the mat. So we had Jeff Hardy end up spiking Karrion Kross into the mat. He was mounting some offense, and he then hit the inverted atomic drop, and then a leg drop and a low drop kick to Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross then came back, delivered a splash on Jeff Hardy, went for the cover, which Jeff Hardy ended up kicking out at 2. So Jeff Hardy delivered a second rope splash onto Karrion Kross, went for the cover, which Kross ended up kicking out at 2. The end of the match, Kross ended up going right into the Kross jacket, and Karrion Kross ended up winning the match. So post-match, Karrion Kross ended up going to leave. He ended up coming back in. He ended up dropping Jeff Hardy with the Doomsday. Kross ended up applying the Kross jacket again on Jeff Hardy. So the referee was trying to get Kross to break the Kross jacket off of Jeff Hardy. So Kross ended up breaking the hold, and he stood tall over Jeff Hardy, and that was that. But overall, same shit. Same thing that we saw a few weeks back with the both of them. Even though Jeff Hardy won the match a few weeks back with Karrion Kross's debut. But Karrion Kross, WWE has killed everything about him. He's going to be difficult to care about. He just feels like everyone else on the main roster. He feels like Jackson Riker. He feels like Elias. He feels like Keith Lee. It's going to be difficult to care about Karrion Kross. This guy, he still doesn't have Scarlett by him. They took away Scarlett. They changed his theme music. He doesn't have the lights anymore when he used to come out in NXT. He doesn't have the fog. So they changed everything about Karrion Kross. Still no Scarlett. And yet we're supposed to care about Karrion Kross. WWE has completely killed everything about him. It's going to be difficult to care about him. And this guy has a match coming up at TakeOver 36 against Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe is going to be taking the NXT Championship off of Karrion Kross, which that title doesn't mean anything because NXT is officially dead after the supposed 12, or now I hear 13 superstars that were released by WWE from NXT on Friday during SmackDown. NXT is officially dead. So Samoa Joe win the title at TakeOver 36 is going to mean absolutely nothing now that they splurged or they purged 13 superstars from NXT on Friday. And now they're going to rebrand or refresh NXT and make it a developmental thing where they're going to be going back to 2010 NXT, you know, with all the obstacles and everything from what I heard. That is fucking awful. That is Vince McMahon's vision of this new NXT reboot or revision. Awful. Absolutely awful. And like I said on Friday, after the releases that we saw, who's going to watch NXT anymore? Is there any point? So fucking terrible. This new NXT revision is going to be fucking awful. So then we saw video of Alexa Bliss and Lily. This was footage from last week where they were taunting Eva Marie after Doudrop lost to Tamina last week. And they played the video of how Doudrop ended up attacking Alexa Bliss from behind later on, and how Lily ended up standing up like The Undertaker, which that was freaking terrible. That was laughable. So now we had Alexa Bliss versus Doudrop. Absolutely boring, in my opinion. This match was fucking terrible. So before the match got underway, Kevin Patrick ended up stopping Matt Riddle backstage. He ended up asking if this is really the end of him teaming with Randy Orton. So Matt Riddle ended up calling it an emotional roller coaster. He ended up saying that he doesn't know what to say or how to feel, but that he has to respect Orton's wishes. Matt Riddle ended up saying that he's a stallion, and he has to do what a stallion must do, and that's ride. So Matt Riddle ended up riding away on the scooter, and that was that. Doudrop ended up coming out along with Eva Marie, and Alexa Bliss was waiting in the ring. So she had Lily by her. Alexa Bliss ended up placing Lily on the top turnbuckle as the bell rang. We had "We Want Wyatt" chants from the crowd. Alexa Bliss was turned upside down in the corner. Eva Marie was talking trash to her. Doudrop ended up charging at Alexa Bliss, but Bliss ended up kicking Doudrop. Bliss ended up crawling on the mat, and she was creeping Doudrop out and angering her. Doudrop then scooped Alexa Bliss up, but Bliss ended up turning it into a sleeper. Doudrop ended up slamming Alexa Bliss to the mat, and Doudrop ended up going for a splash, but Alexa Bliss ended up moving out of the way. So Alexa Bliss ended up kicking Doudrop in the back, and then kicked her in the arm. Bliss had some offense on Doudrop, and she ended up hitting a crossbody, and Bliss went for the cover, which Doudrop ended up kicking out too. And this was a really stupid part in this match, where Doudrop was talking some trash to Lily in the corner. She then turned back around to Alexa Bliss talking her from the mat. Doudrop then turns back around to Lily, and Lily ended up winking at Doudrop. So Doudrop was spooked at that, and it led to Alexa Bliss rolling Doudrop up for the win. So there you go. Alexa Bliss ended up winning the match. Doudrop lost the match stupidly because she got distracted by a doll winking at her. Are you kidding me? Awful. This was awful. So Alexa Bliss, post-match, ended up grabbing Lily from the corner. She ended up hugging her, celebrating with Lily in the middle of the ring. Even Maria and Doudrop were arguing at ringside. And that was that. Awful fucking shit. So then we saw how Damian Priest ended up beating John Morrison last week, and how Damian Priest and Ricochet ended up defeating John Morrison and Sheamus. So we saw a little video recap of that. And then we went to The Miz and John Morrison backstage. They were venting about Damian Priest. Sheamus ended up appearing. He ended up saying that he can't stand the ridiculous catchphrases and outfits of both Miz and Morrison. Sheamus ended up blaming last week's loss on John Morrison. So Sheamus and Morrison, they were having some words to each other, but Miz ended up calming things down between the both of them. Sheamus ended up going on about how he's going to crush Ricochet tonight. Sheamus ended up saying that John Morrison better get the job done against Damian Priest, or he's in for a hell of a drought. So that was that. And then we had Sheamus versus Ricochet. This was a contenders match, so they're still doing the contenders match for some stupid reason. What is this going to be every single week now, where a certain superstar has to have a contenders match? This is awful. So Sheamus ended up making his way out, and Sheamus ended up posing in the corner, and Monday Night Raw went to commercial. And then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Ricochet ended up coming out, and this Ricochet looked to secure a shot at the United States Championship. So the match ended up starting, which the match was okay, in my opinion. So Sheamus and Ricochet were trading shots. Sheamus ended up sending Ricochet to the mat. They ended up blocking up. Ricochet was throwing some left and rights to Sheamus. Sheamus then turned it around, started beating Ricochet around, and then slammed him to the mat. Sheamus ended up leveling Ricochet with a shoulder. Ricochet then ran the ropes, ended up delivering a scissors takedown to Sheamus. Ricochet then kept control of the match, and Sheamus ended up retreating out to the floor to take a breather. Sheamus then came back in and kicked Ricochet, and then ended up delivering knees to Ricochet in the gut to take control of the match. Sheamus then ended up taking Ricochet down by his arm, started grounding Ricochet. Ricochet then ended up fighting Sheamus off and into the corner, but Sheamus ended up fighting out, ended up slamming Ricochet. So Sheamus ended up scooping Ricochet on his shoulders, but Ricochet ended up fighting it off. He then avoided a bro kick. Ricochet ended up avoiding the bro kick, ended up sending Sheamus out to the floor. Ricochet then ended up running the ring and nailed a dive, which sent Sheamus into the announce table, which that was a decent spot there. Ricochet then ended up springboarding out of the ring and nailed a crossbody that sent him and Sheamus tumbling over the announce table out to the floor, which was good, which was a good spot there. So then Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back, we saw Ricochet was fighting Sheamus off, but Sheamus ended up nailing the Irish Curse backbreaker to Ricochet. So at the end of the match, Sheamus ended up winning the match. Sheamus ended up delivering a bro kick to Ricochet. So there you go. Sheamus ended up winning the match. Post-match, we had Damian Priest ended up coming out. Damian Priest ended up doing his entrance. Sheamus was looking on. So Damian Priest ended up coming into the ring. He got in Sheamus' face. Sheamus ended up backing away because both of them had some words. So Damian Priest ended up firing his bow in the air. You know how he does the... And Sheamus ended up trying to attack. Damian Priest ended up blocking the attack, which he then dumped Sheamus out of the ring. And that was that. And then we had Damian Priest versus John Morrison once again. Do I really need to talk about this match? Because we've seen it last week. Nothing different than what we saw last week in the match. But Damian Priest ended up winning. Priest ended up dropping Morrison with the Reckoning. So that was that. Post-match, Damian Priest ended up going to ringside. The Miz ended up backing up in his wheelchair. He was pleading with Damian Priest. John Morrison ended up trying to make the save, but Damian Priest ended up taking him out. Damian Priest then grabbed a dripstick or dipstick from The Miz, and he started spraying it at John Morrison while he was down. He then grabbed another one, started spraying Morrison. And then Damian Priest ended up grabbing The Miz by his tie. He was taunting The Miz. And Miz ended up jumping out of his wheelchair and showed that he's not really injured. So everyone was shocked, of course. The Miz ended up running away to the back. He left Morrison down there at ringside. So Damian Priest ended up getting into the ring. He ended up getting on the mic. Damian Priest was running Sheamus down. And Sheamus ended up coming out to the stage. Sheamus was telling Damian Priest to say what he has to say when he's in the room, not after he's walked out. So Damian Priest ended up calling Sheamus a bully. He ended up saying, like every other bully in his life, he will deal with him. And that this is different because he wants a match with Sheamus at SummerSlam. So Sheamus ended up saying that Damian Priest talks a big game. Sheamus then went on to say, oh, maybe I am a bully. Maybe I like being a bully. And he ended up saying that he will put Damian Priest in his place. Sheamus then accepted Damian Priest's match for SummerSlam. He ended up saying Damian Priest better be ready for the fight of his life at SummerSlam. So John Morrison ended up trying to attack Damian Priest from behind, but Damian Priest ended up delivering a big kick to Morrison, which Morrison was laid out, which they said, oh, it was a bro kick delivered by Damian Priest to John Morrison. So Damian Priest ended up saying, that's going to be you at SummerSlam, Sheamus. So that was basically that. But we're getting the match at SummerSlam, Sheamus versus Damian Priest for the United States Championship. We all knew it was coming. So that would be a pretty decent match there. So then we saw Mansoor. Mansoor was backstage. He was apologizing to Mustafa Ali for what happened after the match last week. And Mansoor ended up presenting Mustafa Ali with a jacket that looks like his own. Mustafa Ali ended up wanting Mansoor to stop apologizing and say that he's sure Mansoor will have better judgment last time. Mustafa Ali ended up saying that he's going to show Mansoor how it's done, and all he has to do is watch and learn. So that was that. And then we saw TBar versus Mustafa Ali, which this was a quick match. We had Mason TBar end up coming out first. And then Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back, we had a backstage promo that was pre-recorded from TBar. He ended up saying that Mansoor and Mustafa Ali will find out that they are at the bottom of the food chain, and that size matters. And then Mustafa Ali then ended up coming out along with Mansoor. So the match started. TBar ended up taking control of the match earlier on. He ended up launching Mustafa Ali up and down to the mat. Went for the cover, which Mustafa Ali ended up kicking out at 2. Mustafa Ali then fought back and kicked TBar in the chest. Mustafa Ali then ended up launching himself over the top rope. TBar then ended up catching Mustafa Ali and started manhandling him. Launched Mustafa Ali into the barricade. So both TBar and Mustafa Ali brought it back into the ring. TBar ended up leveling Mustafa Ali with a boot. And TBar went for the cover, which Mustafa Ali ended up kicking out at 2. TBar ended up catching Mustafa Ali in midair again. And TBar then ended up nailed a backbreaker for a close 2 count. As Mustafa Ali was, watching from ringside. Mace ended up running over. He ended up flattening Mansoor at ringside. Mustafa Ali ended up countering TBar in the ring. Rolled him up for a close 2 count. Mustafa Ali came back and delivered a tornado DDT from the corner onto TBar. So Mustafa Ali went to the top, ended up going down after TBar ended up kicking the ropes. TBar then ended up placing Mustafa Ali on the shoulders and delivered a modified GTS on Mustafa Ali. So TBar went for the cover, and there you go. TBar ended up winning the match. Post-match, Mace ended up joining TBar as they go to double team on Mustafa Ali with the High Justice. But Mansoor ended up making the save and delivered a missile drop kick to TBar, which sent TBar out to the floor. Mansoor then ended up unloaded on Mace, dumping him to the apron. Mansoor then ended up kicking Mace out to the floor, where TBar ended up joining him. And we saw Mansoor, he ended up helping Mustafa Ali up. And Mustafa Ali was looking shocked at how Mansoor ended up clearing the ring by himself. So pretty much that was basically that. But overall, this was a quick match. But I'm liking the pairing with Mustafa Ali and Mansoor. Liking the pairing between the both of them. And then we went to the Jobber 24/7 bullshit with Reginald or Reggie in the back. He was doing a photo shoot. Who fucking cares? So Akira Tozawa ended up appearing disguised as a delivery man. So Tozawa ended up attacking Reggie. He ended up rolling Reggie up for a 2 count, but R-Truth ended up breaking it up. R-Truth was also disguised. He was disguised as a janitor. And Reggie was doing his Circus Soleil flips, ended up avoiding both Tozawa and R-Truth. So R-Truth ended up saying that Reggie is on Xbox mode. So Tozawa and R-Truth were arguing, and that was that. But stupid 24/7 bullshit. I'm tired of seeing this title on TV. It's awful. Awful shit. I don't know who finds this shit funny. It's not funny. This show fucking sucks. And then we had Kevin Patrick backstage with Styles and Omos. Styles ended up going on about how Randy Orton made a colossal mistake tonight. So it's confirmed that Orton versus Styles is, going to take place later on in the night, which was the main event. So then we had Bobby Lashley and MVP end up making their way out. So MVP was in the ring. He was on the mic. MVP was calling on fans to rise to show the proper respect to the almighty Bobby Lashley. He then addressed what happened last week, and he points to how if Goldberg really wants a fight, and that he didn't raise his hands when he was in the ring with Bobby Lashley, and that he did come back like a coward and hit MVP with a spear. MVP ended up saying that Goldberg then lied and said he did the spear because MVP was threatening his son. MVP ended up saying that he and Bobby Lashley are also fathers and would do nothing like that. So MVP was acting in a humanitarian capacity. He was telling Gage to talk his dad out of the match if he loves him, because Bobby Lashley is going to end his career at SummerSlam. MVP then went on to say that he's been slandered before and that he's not happy about Bobby Lashley being slandered. MVP went on to say that he has 4 bruised ribs and other cracked ribs because of Goldberg's spear, and that he has x-rays to prove it. He ended up saying that the only thing worse than a spear from Goldberg is one from the Almighty. MVP wanted to say that Goldberg only has himself to blame for what happens. He ended up saying maybe Goldberg shouldn't bring his son. So MVP ended up going on about the pain that he's still in from the spear from Goldberg. And MVP ended up saying that he wants Gage to talk his father out of the match, because if they show up, he will see his father humiliated and annihilated like never before, as Bobby Lashley ends Goldberg's career. He ended up saying that the upside is Gage will have his dad to come to his football and baseball games, and that they can sit on the couch and watch Monday Night Raw together, reminiscing about the time he didn't care about his father enough to talk him out of the match. So Bobby Lashley then took the mic from MVP, and Bobby Lashley was warning Goldberg to not let his son watch the beating that he's going to take at SummerSlam. Bobby Lashley ended up saying that it will be so bad that Gage will want to share the same last name. Bobby Lashley ended up saying that Goldberg is not next at SummerSlam, and that Goldberg is done. So Bobby Lashley then tossed the mic, and that was how the segment ended. But this was, okay segment here from MVP and the almighty Bobby Lashley. But we don't need this match at SummerSlam. We don't need Bobby Lashley versus Goldberg. I mean, who asked for this match? This match should be taking place at a Saudi Arabia show, not at SummerSlam. So then we saw Sarah Schreiber. Sarah Schreiber ended up stopping Rhea Ripley backstage. Sarah Schreiber was asking Rhea Ripley if she's still as confident as she was after seeing last week's no-holds-barred match between Nikki, A.S.H, and Charlotte Flair. Rhea Ripley ended up giving Nikki some props for last week's no-holds-barred match, but wonders if Nikki has the dark side needed to keep the title because she hasn't seen it. Rhea Ripley ended up saying that nothing will save Nikki from the beating that she's going to give her tonight, and that's SummerSlam, when she becomes the new Raw Women's Champion. So Rhea Ripley ended up walking off. She ended up making her way out to the ring, which Rhea Ripley then, came out. So Monday Night Raw went to commercial, and then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Sarah Schreiber was now backstage with Nikki A.S.H, the Raw Women's Champion. So Nikki ended up talking about how she has her spirit and her drive to help her tonight. She ended up saying that she knew Rhea Ripley and Charlotte would be hard to deal with when she began all this, and that she didn't almost beat Charlotte last week. She did beat her, and she's almost sure she will beat Rhea Ripley. So Nikki ended up going on and ended up saying that she will do what it takes to retain the title at SummerSlam. So then Nikki ended up making her way out. So we had Nikki A.S.H versus Rhea Ripley, which this match was just meh, in my opinion. We saw Nikki end up having her ribs all taped up from last week, from a match last week. So the match started with Rhea Ripley throwing some offense at Nikki. Nikki ended up countering, ended up taking Rhea Ripley down with a headlock. She kept control of the match. She ended up taking Rhea Ripley down with another headlock from the corner. Rhea Ripley then ended up powering out, ended up slamming Nikki face first into the mat. Rhea Ripley ended up focusing on Nikki's ribs, which she ended up kicking Nikki in the ribs, sending her into the corner. Rhea Ripley ended up delivering a thrust in the corner to Nikki. And then she ended up dropping Nikki in the corner, started keeping control of the match. Rhea Ripley then ended up launching Nikki across the ring by her hair. And Rhea Ripley ended up launching Nikki into the turnbuckles. She ended up dumping Nikki out to the floor. So Nikki ended up fighting Rhea Ripley off. She ended up charging, and Rhea Ripley ended up dropping Nikki face first into the edge of the apron. So at the end of the match, we had Nikki end up standing up on the top, and Charlotte ended up appearing out of nowhere. She ended up hitting the apron. She ended up shoving Nikki down to the mat, which caused a disqualification. So Nikki ended up winning the match by disqualification. Post-match, Charlotte ended up coming into the ring. She ended up dropping Nikki. Charlotte then ended up dropping Rhea Ripley with the natural selection. So Charlotte ended up marching around the ring with the Raw Women's Championship in the air. And that was that. But overall, just a very meh match from Nikki, A.S.H, and Rhea Ripley. So then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we had a new vignette from Elias. So we saw Elias walking outside with his guitar. He ended up approaching a fire. This was, at nighttime. So it ended up showing guitar shots that Elias has taken over the back from other superstars. So Elias ended up playing a tune, and he then tossed the guitar into the fire. He ended up saying that WWE stood for Walk with Elias. But Elias is dead. So it looks like Elias is getting a gimmick change. So we'll see that. We'll see what happens with that. So then we saw Sarah Schreiber. Sarah Schreiber ended up stopping Charlotte backstage, and she ended up asking Charlotte why she attacked Rhea Ripley and Nikki. Charlotte ended up saying that she saw a strategic opportunity to rub salt in the wounds as she watched them fighting each other. She ended up saying that she wants to reclaim her title at SummerSlam, but she's not taking any chances. And if they were on her level, they would have anticipated the attack. Charlotte then ended up going on about being the most decorated woman in WWE, which made me roll my eyes. She ended up saying that everyone can continue praying for her downfall, and that nothing will stop her from winning the Raw Women's Championship at SummerSlam. God, please don't give her back the Raw Women's Championship. Please. So then we saw Kevin Patrick. Kevin Patrick ended up stopping Randy Orton backstage, and he ended up asking why he's distanced himself from Matt Riddle. Orton ended up saying that it's simple. He works better alone, and that he doesn't need the friendships, the teammates, and distractions to beat Styles. He ended up telling Kevin Patrick that he's going to do that alone tonight, all by himself. So then Randy Orton ended up walking off, and then Randy Orton made his way out, which we had the match, AJ Styles versus Randy Orton, which was the main event. So then Monday Night Raw went to commercial as Randy Orton made his way out. And then when Monday Night Raw came back, we had Styles and Omos end up coming out. Match started. Orton ended up unloaded with some right hands, which he ended up knocking Styles into the corner. Styles ended up fighting back, started delivering chops out of the corner. Styles then ended up sliding under an attack, but Orton ended up uppercutting Styles. Styles ended up trying to fight back, but Orton ended up leveling him. So Orton ended up turning to stare out at Omos. Orton started stomping away on Styles to keep him down. Orton ended up taking it out to the floor, started working on Styles. He ended up slamming Styles face first into the announce table right next to Omos. So at the end of the match, we had Omos end up slamming Matt Riddle out to the floor because Matt Riddle ended up appearing out of nowhere at ringside. He was shoving Omos into the ring post, and then he jumped on his back to deliver a sleeper, which Omos then ended up slamming Matt Riddle to the floor. Styles ended up springboarding in with the phenomenal forearm, and Orton ended up catching him in midair with the RKO. So Orton went for the cover, and there you go. Randy Orton ended up winning the match. Of course, we knew Orton was going to win. So post-match, Matt Riddle was in the ring. He ended up wanting the hug from Orton. Orton was hyped up, but he wasn't thrilled there with Matt Riddle. So Matt Riddle ended up telling Orton to listen to the fans. So Riddle and Orton end up hugging. It got a big pop from the crowd. So Orton ended up hesitating, at points. He tried to not show a ton of excitement. He ended up raising Matt Riddle's arm. And then Orton dropped Matt Riddle with the RKO out of nowhere. Orton ended up standing back up. And that was how Monday Night Raw went off the air. Overall, this match, Randy Orton versus Styles, it was, a decent match. But, Orton ended up RKOing Matt Riddle at the end there. This is going to set up their match at SummerSlam. It's going to be Orton versus Matt Riddle. We're going to be getting that match at SummerSlam. But overall, terrible Monday Night Raw, as always. The shitty Monday Night Raw tonight. But anyways, that's it for the Monday Night Raw review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. And until next video, I'll see you all later.